Forward!
Hard work, hard work. Hard work, hard work. Hard work, work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work, hard work. Hard work, hard work. Hard work, work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work, hard work. Hard work.
Fall in.
Hey, what's good? What's good? What's good? Y'all know what it is. It's me, your boy Trey. And you rock with your favorite vets in the net as we get into it today. First Formation Morning Sports Talk presented by E2G Sports Network. So, of course, we have a topic that is continuing on. I guess it's trending. I don't know if we could say it's trending for the most part, but we do have a topic that we've been talking about the course of the last 2 weeks, in which it has been a conversation about what is the state of military basketball. Of course, we've had commissioners and tournament directors. We've had the players in themselves. We look to get the ladies in on this conversation in the next coming couple of weeks. But right now, we're going to tap in with some of the coaches. Some of these coaches are mentioned by said players as being coaches that they look up to, that they've spoken to. So we're going to give the coaches an opportunity to just chime in on this subject. Of course, y'all go ahead. I want to. We got some great minds here. So, of course, as they continue to come in. But coaches, go ahead, introduce yourselves. Let us know, for the people who don't know, who you are and who you represent. Go ahead and start it off. Coach Corpling.
Antoine Corbin Manor, go by Coach Mo. Spent time coaching Eglin, Cannon Air Force Base, several other programs. Recently just retired a couple years back, so now I'm in the high school coaching scene down in Florida, but glad to join.
Okay. Coach Glensley.
Yeah, I'm Coach Lindsay. Stay down here at Fort Benning, Georgia. Started out in Raleigh for a year or so, then came on over here to Benning. Now I work with Coach Ace.
Okay. So, of course, that's the lead in. Coach Ace Avedo. Train keeps moving. I seen the clip this morning.
Hey, good morning. I've been itching to get on. So, I work with my battle buddy, Coach Glensley, down here at Fort Benning. Came from Fort Carson, was there for about 8 years, then went over to Peterson for about another 2 years, and then Family Matters brought me here to the South, and been here, like I said, with Coach Glensley here for the past going on 3 years this summer. So glad to be on the show.
Okay, Coach Mayon.
What's the deal? Good morning, Vietnam. Coach Mayon here, coming to you from sunny El Paso, Texas. Got them West Texas military basketball. Most folks know me from the Bliss Boys, Team Bliss back in the day. Here for a great conversation today.
Okay, Coach Anderson, of course, the West Coast representative. Pull up.
What's going on, fam?
Yes,
I'm just here so hey, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
And of course, we'll bring cleaning up the crew, the conference commissioner, Jason. What's good, man? What's going on?
Hey, man? What's good, everybody? So I've been told I'm the tri-conference commissioner. So I guess that's the name, that's the nickname I've been given. So everybody knows who I am. I'm just glad to see my fellow coaches on here today, and excited. As Coach Ace said, he's been itching. He's been telling us since Monday. Make sure y'all have y'all schedules cleared on Thursday. Don't be busy on Thursday. Make sure and he let us know. Get your cup of coffee ready before we got started today. So we off and running.
So of course,
I see you.
Okay.
I see you.
So I'll start off with this. The real question at hand: Nicki Minaj or Rakim? No, I'll just mess around. I just see that. I was like, yeah, they bugging. But okay, so real talk. Getting back into it, right? of course, like I said, I'm very sure that some of y'all been watching already or watched over the last couple of weeks. First, we had Mr. Richardson and Mr. Myers that came in and spoke their piece and stuff like that in reference to some situation, which it all comes back to basketball, military basketball. Two different factions, two different things, a tournament, a league, said their piece in which it was seen as good dialogue. Then the players get on and the players speak their piece in reference to in-state, basically saying they just want to play. And so, of course, there was a lot of angst in what I seen being in some of the rooms and stuff like that and seeing the comments and everything like that across the board. So from your perspective, what is the state of military basketball at this point? Anyone can chime in and tap in and start it off.
Oh, well, if they're going to be quiet, I'll start. You already know me, Trey. So, I mean, I'll tell you like this. Hey, I don't waste no time. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm just speaking from my foxhole, right? I know the coaches might have a different opinion here, but military basketball right now for me is flourishing. I mean, you got tournaments around the country. You have we meaning me and Al for the NBA. We have conference play going on. I mean, March Madness is ramping up. We're coming in the home stretch of our conference play. I was just on the phone with a couple of people trying to put dot I's and cross T's for the conference tournaments coming up in April. So as far as I'm concerned, military basketball is flourishing and it is off and running. I mean, it's in a good state as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, is this based off of the current state now, or is it compared to what it was like, as I said, the yesteryear, not dating anybody, but the yesteryear of back in different days, no different how we look at a different era in the NBA compared to the current era in the NBA. So is that based off of that or just in general when you look at it?
No, I would say it's back. I mean, we all know everybody on this call for the most part has either been in a long time or did a long time or was in back when military pre 9/11. Okay. When military basketball was great back in like the 80s and 90s and all that, and it was what it was, and it kind of due to mission and deployments and everything, it really fell off in the early 2000s, in my opinion, based off of the Iraq War and Afghanistan and everything, and it was a struggle. And with all that, that was where Mike Richardson, he's been running his tournament for about 10 years now, and all the other tournaments have been going. Capital Classic has been going strong, 25 plus, and then with the NBA in the last 5 years, it's back. That's what I'm saying. As a whole, I feel military basketball is back on the map in general. That's compared to where it was 10 years ago during the Iraq wars and, where it was before that, like back in the days when all Army camp was held at Presidio in California.
Okay. So anyone else have a different outtake or same outtake? Let me hear someone else tap in so we can get everyone's perspective.
Want to go ahead, Al? Because I'm bringing up. I'm coming in with another topic.
I'll say that military basketball it never left. It just changed.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest misconception going around right now is that military basketball took a dive or whatever. They didn't. It's changed. Fundings went away. People have to do things, be innovative to get teams going and playing and players playing. And so it's just changed. And if it's going to survive and stay relevant, we have to change. And some of that we may not like because we're comfortable with it. So that's the answer. My answer is it's alive and going. It just look different. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Any other coaches? I know Coach XFA is waiting for another topic. So any other to chime in a reference, or does everyone concur with Jason and Coach Mayon that this is what it is? It's back. It's better. I mean, I ain't gonna say better than ever, but it's back. It's flourishing again. And Coach Mayon just said basically it's about to change, and which sometimes people aren't ready for the change. And then now that the flourishing came with the change, so it's Coach Corcoran, Coach Glensley, y'all all in agreement. Coach Anderson.
I'm kind of like Mason. I'm one of the babies that Jason was talking about. I came in the 2000s. So, I got to see, it was kind like you said, it was very mission dictated. I didn't get to do a lot per se as far as military basketball went because I was always on somebody's plane across the water. And you would hear about these tournaments, these plays, what I'm saying, these things going on. I think Vegas was a big one back in the day. And you would hear from some of the older soldiers about how, I would say glory years, if you will, of basketball where they could do this and they did that. And I got to see a little bit of it at Bliss where we would just go play Luke or something. Carson, we were mostly in city leagues, but once I got to Riley and the NBA really started to grow from there for me and my output, it got
Hey,
bigger. It got bigger.
Okay. What's good, Lieutenant? Glad to have information with us this morning, brother. Commissioner Myers, you tapped in. I see you. Glad to have information as well. Coach Gerard, what's good? We're glad to have you as well. Glad to have y'all tuning in this morning. So, of course, so with that being said, like you said, how many of y'all let the people know? Because I'm very sure this is going to be something that comes up because I hear it here and there. How many of y'all pounded the concrete at one point? Y'all were players prior to picking up the reins of coaches. Coach Lindsay. All right, Coach
I played for
Mayon.
Ace and Jason.
Okay, Roger that. Okay, so I know some of that may go into the conversation, talk about the conversation, the validity of his coaches. So I asked the question, right? Does that make a difference from y'all standpoint, or from y'all see it? Do the players tend to respect you more because you were a player now, or do you tend to see the same type of respect when you have when you just know X's and O's at the end state, and you may not have been a player for the most part, but you know the game? Where do you see the more respect come in at that point?
Yeah, having that history is vital, I think, in getting the respect of your team. X's and O's are one thing, but military basketball is such a different beat. To be a player that had to live with those situations, right? Whether it's deployments, TDYs, got to do your PT, your regular duty. A coach that has not experienced that, I don't think you can connect the right way with a group of military guys playing ball. It's just, I don't care how good your X's and O's are, the relationship part, which in my opinion is probably the most important part of coaching the game of basketball, is actually building that relationship with the players. Having that is almost impossible if you haven't been in their shoes, because it is so extremely different. It's not like a high school coach or that didn't play high school and they're a science teacher, right? Like, it's who cares, or the kids are trying to get to college. Or a college coach who hasn't played at the biggest level of college can still have the X's and O's and be a good coach without that relationship, because they have the right connections and the right network to get you to the next level. Well, all of that is different when you're talking about soldiers that are literally playing for passion. And 99% of the soldiers that play military basketball have either already played their college ball, or the others will not, 99% will not get looked at and picked up off of military basketball. So they're playing for passion, and there's so many limb facts that come in playing military basketball that, as a coach, if you can't talk to those, if you can't be empathetic to those, you have a hard time unifying your team and having any level of success. So I think if you haven't played military basketball and you're coaching military basketball, it's got to be an uphill battle.
Okay. What's going on, brother? What's going on there this morning? Bishop, how you doing there, sir?
What's good? WGO. What's going on? What's going on? It's Friday Eve, man. Man, we got a full slate on here today, man.
Yeah,
What's
going down
up?
this morning.
Bishop, I
Man,
was wondering where
they
you were.
bought that life today, huh? Look, we got Mr. Jason on here. Look, I mean, good Lord, what's today? Is somebody's birthday today? What is it? Military basketball appreciation? Like, what is it?
Military Basketball Appreciation Day.
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing this morning?
Good.
That's what's
Trey,
up.
It's going
Trey,
on.
I
Good
know,
morning. Good morning.
I dropped off and had to come back on, but I think I heard the last thing you talked. I think Mo was just talking about that, where you had asked who had all pounded the pavement, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people know me as an official and as, the commissioner for the NBA. But what some people don't know is prior to coming in the military, I did play college ball, JUCO, before I came in out of South Florida, down there at Broward Community College. Then came in the military. I did do a stint at All Army in '96. with a couple of the guys out there. So went over to Europe. I had a chance to play pro ball in the Bundesliga for 4 years. Came back, played semi-pro ball in DC. So as a ball player, an official, a coach, because I did coach at Fort Riley for a little while, I try to see everything and do see everything from all three levels. And it's definitely different. It's definitely different from all three.
So in what way could y'all expound to that and let us know from us? You know what I'm saying? Like I sit up and picked up a stint of coaching when I had a minor league basketball team, and it could be, and some of those players were players from here, from Fort Polk, and then some of them was other players. So I know what I had to deal with in the catch. But for y'all who, like you said, the three levels, what are the differences in the three levels for you, or what are some of the things that what y'all seeing, and I maybe won't be able to tie it back into the conversation.
Well, for me, what I was saying when I speak to three levels, I'm talking as a player, as a coach,
Okay.
and as an official.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this: for that, the one similarity across the board there is personalities, and I think that's a big thing when you're dealing with on any level. As a player, you're going to deal with personalities with your coaches and with your other players on the team. As an official, you're dealing with personalities as far as, again, the coach and the players on the court. And then as a coach, you have to manage those personalities, in my opinion, with your players. You might have to handle different players different ways based off of their personalities. You can be harder on other players than you can on some. And again, that's just my opinion. You got to find the buttons to push to make them go.
Okay.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. That's kind of the vein that I was saying. But I think that having those three levels, most of us I think have had that as well. Our coach played and called for about 14 years as well. So we all have that experience, and I think that's what makes us unique when it comes to coaching military basketball, because we have the ability to I don't think coaching primarily is about unification of personalities as much as it is about building a team personality. And so because we have that experience, we can talk to players and help them see things that they don't understand. You can help players deal with referees better when you can explain in depth and with accuracy as to what a referee's job is, what they're doing, what they're seeing. The same thing goes as a coach. I can develop a system that is effective for my team because I knew what I could do as a player. And I also know that as a player, what kind of freedom I want, what kind of leeway, what kind of creativity I want to be allowed to have within the system, right? So I don't have a rigid system as a coach that go do this, go do that, where it affects the players negatively. And then again, as a player in the military realm, I understand what it means to work, 7-day, 12-hour shifts and still have to deal with practice. And so I now know what the players are going through, so how I can schedule my practices better. I can do things, make it more beneficial for them and their families because I've been in their shoes, right? So I think the importance of having those levels and being on the sideline in military basketball, I think it is uniquely different. And I do believe now that I'm in a high school coaching realm out here, I'm interacting with high school coaches, college coaches. The one thing I see, regardless of what my win-loss record will ever show, I wholeheartedly believe I'm going to be a better damn coach than every one of them, because there's things that they don't have, that experiences they don't have, that they can't relate in the same manner as we do to players when it deals with the military.
Bishop, I was just sitting here thinking, man, can you imagine if we had tried to be a part of military basketball? Like I seen the clip this morning from Coach Acevedo, and they was getting it in like 6:30 or 5:30 in the morning, man. Do you know what that would have been like for us? Like that's just an hour before that, I was going and get the keys to open the facility up. Like it would have been no way possible. But I mean, that type of stuff goes down, I guess.
Hey, so Trey, I know I fell off. I just want to add one thing to that.
Yes, sir.
Question. So one thing I do, because I used to play, and I actually played up until 2011, and I joined in '92. Go figure. And I still do it today, especially when I have a new team. I lace my shoes up and go show them that I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. You did not just say that, Bishop.
If I have guys doubting if I know what I'm talking about, after those steps where I go and play, I don't have any more problems.
Okay.
So it's very vital, I think, especially for basketball, guys know your credibility, especially new guys, And your credibility is either you know what they know how or they see you. So some coaches, they just want guys to show up and respect them because of what they've done. You got to, I think Mo said, you got to find a way to connect them, and you connect them in different ways, and each one is different. But that's been my most successful way to get the guys to buy in, is to show them I know what I'm talking about.
So with that,
Go ahead,
real
Jason.
quick, I want to ask all the coaches this real quick. So with that being said, being coaches, commissioners, founders of all of these orgs and things of that nature, who has more of the advantage? A coach who has basketball experience, and when I say basketball experience, who's actually been on the court, who's played organized basketball, compared to a coach who's just been a coach, who's coached for years but may have never actually played the sport themselves.
In the military realm, if you're talking, with what we're talking about, in the military realm, the coach who's played has the advantage, because you got to remember, military basketball is so unique, right? There is no vetting process or hiring process for the coach that is about to coach at Cannon Air Force Base to replace the kid that replaced me. There's no vetting process, right? So you literally, it is probably one of the hardest, most demanding, and most underappreciated voluntary opportunities that you have as a military basketball coach. So now when you walk into the gym, you see this dude you ain't never seen before. The athletic director don't care whether he can hoop. He don't care whether he knows what he's talking about. He doesn't care that he's got 20 years of coaching experience or he's ever played. He doesn't care. There's no process to vet it. So as a coach, when I walk into a gym and I go to say I'm holding tryouts or whatever case may be, when people walk into the gym and they like, man, I remember you from Air Force. I remember you from Korea. Like, I heard the stories of you. Like, oh, you instantly have a credibility. There's instant advantage. Now, there's going to be some difficulties and conflict with that. Like, oh, well, you think you're such and such. You're going to have that. But you have the advantage because the kids know, I call them kids, the soldiers know, the airmen know instantly, hey, man, this dude can go. So at least I'm going to give him a shot, right? If I never seen you play, and I know that nobody's vetted to see how good you are as a coach, when I walk in the gym, the first thing I'm thinking is, who is this dude? Like, so there's a wall up. So you got an advantage if you played, especially if you played, like Jason was talking about, at the all Army levels, the U safety, back when it was before it was the CT Air North. You played at those high levels where your name has rung out amongst military basketball for the duration of your time. And you say you stepping on the sideline, you instantly got an advantage. Whether you can coach or not, you can lose.
It's something different.
Mo, that's exactly what I was going to say. And we see this at all levels of basketball. Just because a great player is a great player doesn't mean he's going to be instantly a great coach. Again, take a Magic Johnson, for instance. Not everybody can transition from a player to a coach. And not every coach was a player. So you have it on both sides. But I do agree with Mo. The advantage definitely goes to if you were on the court, you played the game, and especially like you said, if people know who you are, know who you were, you'll get it. But going back to what Al said, and Jamal will tell you, because he was here when I was coaching Fort Riley, and Jamal was here when I was still playing. So as the years went on, and I retired, and players didn't see me on the court from the day to day on the weekends and stuff, you did have to, like Al said, put them shoes and carry your shoes into the gym Saturday morning and show them dudes you can still hoop, to get that respect and credibility from the ones that didn't know you, never saw you on the court. And after you won 5, 6, 7, 8 games with 4 scrubs, right? Now it's like, oh, damn, coach can play a little bit. That part.
But yeah, but that's gonna be. But I agree with you too, Jason. But like, as far as reference Magic Johnson thing, like, that's exactly the example I was saying, right? The vetting process for the other levels is what makes it different. Now, the Lakers absolutely failed in vetting Magic Johnson to be a coach, right? The system failed in that vetting, but there is a process. What I'm saying is, when it comes to us or you guys now on the sidelines of military basketball, there is no vetting, and I think that's why the actual experience. Now, as you get older and get further removed, those veterans will have to remind those new guys, or like what I did at Cannon, I had big barbecue and I'm showing plays that I want to draw up. Well, I just went and got game film from when I was running those plays or doing certain things. Hey, I want you to work on this move. And it's like, whatever. So then I put on career tape or I put on Eglin tape and they're like, damn, coach, like that, like, whoa. So I may not necessarily get out there and play with you at that point, or I may not have the time to make everybody understand that I have that history. But there's creative ways to make sure that people realize, like, yo, I did this. So not only do I know it, but I did it. And I think that is an advantage.
Mo, I'm gonna piggyback one more thing off what you said with the vetting process. And actually, I'm gonna challenge Trayvon here because he is a sports director at Polk. I think if more sports directors took the care and the time and the opportunity to support their base programs, right, you would get a vetting process. When you, and again, this is not to speak on Trey, but there are sports directors out there that are just sitting in the seat. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if we shots fired. If the shoe fits, wear it. But I know as a commissioner that have dealt with damn near over 50 military installations across the country at the base level, there are some great sports directors. And then there are some that are just literally collecting a check. They don't want nothing to do with varsity basketball. They don't even, half of them didn't even know they had a team because the team was doing it on their own. I mean, let's just be real. You know,
but that's where we go back, and I don't want to keep because I know I don't want to take.
Oh, you good? Go ahead.
But we got time.
We got that. I'll pull in nudges here and there.
But that's where before you roll forward into the next component, that's where you have to revert back to the original question why I didn't say anything about the state of military basketball initially, right? Because therein lies the intricacies of where the state of military basketball is. So for me, what you said is a fact, right? I had one of the great sports directors.
Mr. Yu was great sports director.
Maybe one of the great. And I spent 21 years active and however many for 30 years worth of military basketball. That's the greatest that I've seen. So, but nonetheless, when you look at that situation, you have to revert back and say, well, how is the state of military basketball for real? Because basketball that is being put on is as great as it has ever been. There's the most opportunity for everybody to play. Obviously, y'all know I was part of the original crew. I know the beef and the drama that was between the organizations that has been ironed out a little. The reality is, no matter what's going on, you can hoop anywhere, and you couldn't do that back in the day. There's 1,000 opportunities to play. So that aspect of military basketball, it is great. The talent level, in my opinion, is great. I still watch military basketball. Ace will tell you, I'm still involved in every tournament and game that y'all play, even though I'm not there, because the talent level is even better than it was in the past. Now, here's the issue, though. Everything else about military basketball is not great. The sports directors are not as involved. The funding is terrible. The availability of facilities is awful. So when you ask the question, that's why I really was anxious to get here. When you ask the question of the state of military basketball, I don't care about how nice the rings of NMBT are or how beautiful the NBA replica trophy that you guys have for military basketball looks. That is a small fraction of the state of military basketball.
That's like
and I think that's what I was saying. It's a lot more than just my bad, Al. Go ahead.
No, Mo. Ain't nobody can. That's the only words to give the state of military basketball is what Mo said. That's exactly right. No matter whatever anybody says, if the services and the sports directors don't support this, it will look like it looks right now. He hit it right on the head.
Yeah, you do. You have a great product on the floor, and I love it. It's beautiful, right? I mean, being at the first NBA Finals all the way to the, I missed the last one. My father passed, but being all the way to the one before that, it's been great. The growth has been great. Playing in the Nationals in San Antonio all the way to coaching in it with me and Ace together and then watching it, it's all growing and it's all great. The product appears magnificent, but once we pop the hood on the product, then we do have a lot of issues that still aren't fixed. And I think you can't look at the state of military basketball and just say because it's such a great product. It appears if I drive my car outside, somebody may see it. It looks wonderful until I crank it and smoke comes out the back, right? So now you say, well, how do you fix all of that, or do you really want to have this conversation on the podcast or in the quiet rooms and the meeting rooms of the finals organizations? Do you want to have those conversations, or do we want it to just look pretty?
No, Mo, they need to happen because, like you said, it looks great. And we, when I say we as a collective, players, coaches, organization directors, tournament directors, we are doing what we have to do to keep it alive. But we got no juice from the sports directors. I mean, I can't tell you how many sports directors have told me, well, there's no money. But yet you send in a varsity level softball team from one part of the country to another to go play a tournament in Orlando.
Right.
But you ain't got no money to for your basketball team to even host a game or travel for a tournament or anything. So there's money if you want to find it. I mean, Trey, you know better than I do because you're at that level.
What I was about to say is to give some
But that's like Trey, and just before you even say that, that just seems like that's the scapegoat all the time when it comes to that. That's the first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth because
we ain't got no money.
We don't have money. That's always the first thing come out the mouth.
It's an scapegoat. That's the reality.
Always.
But I say this, man. Even what Mo said was perfect. At the end of the day, though, I think it's up to those folks that volunteer coaches that decide to want to coach a team to not use that as an excuse not to be successful. So, my experiences here at Fort Bliss were dramatically different from my first tour here and where I'm here now. My first tour here, I got excellent support and money and everything that you could think about. They did for us. Then times in between the 3 years I was gone, things changed. I got back. The only support they could give me was, hey, coach, you can use the gym, but we can't reserve time, right? And in saying that, they still are an awesome sports office, but they're hand-strapped by what Trey was about to say. They're hand-strapped by the people above them that tell them that they will not do these things, and their jobs are on the line. Yep. So let's not – I don't want to make this – I would hope we don't make this as beating up sports directors because a lot of them – they don't have choices. They're being told what to do and what by people that are non-sports people, but are being hired as CRD directors.
Right.
So some of it is not the sports director themselves. It is just the military. And I'm going to speak Army because I'm in the Army. I was in the Army and that's what I know. I can tell you most Army bases, if there's a sports director helping you, that man or gentleman, man or woman is doing that out of the kindness in their heart, and they're finding a way for you because they've been given a little leeway. But most times they just don't have it, and they just can't.
But Al, I agree with you, man. I don't think beating up sports directors is all where I was leaning at or thinking about. What I'm saying is that is an excuse or a scapegoat that's brought out. Now, I think that you have to get creative. I think you have to be innovative, and you have to be able to figure out how to make things work. And I also believe that the biggest part of this, in my opinion, in my small opinion, lies on everybody that decides that they are going to coach or lead a military basketball program. The reality is this: everybody wants to jump in and be a coach of a basketball team because they see, Ace yelling and screaming and having a good time, or they see the battles between coaches and the camaraderie, and it looks cool and it sounds cool, right? But the work that goes into it, I told Ace this recently, the work that goes into being a coach of military basketball, it needs to start being displayed. People need to understand how much guys really do, how many hours, how many networking events, how much money they come out. They got to be able to really put that stuff out there. And then now when people want to decide to be a coach, they want to build a program, they know what it takes. And when a sports director doesn't have the money or the policy doesn't allow for something, instead of fighting against it and creating an attitude and I'm going to just take my team off base, how about we figure out a way to where we can build a team on base, on the installation, on the post, and still work with the fitness center or the sports directors to do it together and create something that still represents the base. When I was at Eglin, coaching Eglin, they gave us no support. And the first thing the guys wanted to do was to move off the installation and come up with a team of whatever, Fort Walton Beach, whatever. We're gonna be the Eagles from a different area. But I refused to take the flag of the base off because in my mind, we were going to create a program, however we could do it, still connected to the base, and then the base at some point would desire to absorb that program. And that's what happened. But the onus is on whoever's calling themselves the leader of the program. Whoever's the coach, if you're going to lead the program, then the onus is on you. You can't just say, but that is, to say all of that, that still is a limp fact as part of what's going on. And that's why the state of military basketball in my mind is not a quick, oh yeah, it's great because the games look good and we're streaming the tournament. Like, yeah, that's cute, but there's a whole lot more that goes into the state in my mind of military basketball.
Mo, I was gonna say it's definitely a two-way street. because again, we went through that same thing here at Riley for a while where we had no support. Well, my coach, who just happened to be the fire sergeant maybe at the time, he just kept stomping his foot, kept going and talking to people, and like, if you're not going to help us this way, can you help us this way? I mean, the coach is going to have to put that effort in as well to, like Uriah just said, just don't accept the answer no, and like you said, then just move the team off post, work different angles. And like Al said, the sports director's hands might be tied, but if you can get some support from it, then great. If you can't, well, what can we do? You just can't take a no for an answer. You got to keep asking those questions. And everybody on this call right now has experienced that in some way, shape, or form with either great base support or little to no support, but they didn't just take no for the answer. And they made or worked with their sports director to try to get it done. Now, Trey, I know they've been trying to let you speak, so go ahead.
No, it's fine. So I can only speak, like I said, from I'm not exactly a sports director. I'm the sports specialist on the installation, but I have the direct, and I'm more so the liaison between the team and what's going on and the our SFA director. So what I can say from our institution is I've been through 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4 or 5 directors in this time frame. And each director comes in. The last 2 have been more so open, and so that conversation has been more so moving forth and trying to figure it out. But of course, I can sit up and budget and say, okay, we want to provide this type of money to the installation. But as everyone is saying, it comes back to, if I say I want to have $1,000, right, for basketball, that $1,000 doesn't just say basketball. That means I have to have $1,000 for soccer. I have $1,000 for softball, $1,000 for rugby, $1,000 for golf, if that's the case. And so it starts to add up. So what they do, like, I could put it in a budget, and it's because of the state of where it is now with varsity sports as a whole. And that's what we have to talk about, varsity sports. So I have to speak on varsity sports, not just military basketball, but varsity sports. When it comes down to it, they look at it and be like, okay, is this money that we need to go forth and spend on this echelon or this community, when that can be $5,000 that's going out to help out the installation or provide something to bring toward the installation. So that's one of the things that happen. But you do have some organizations or some installations that are willing to go ahead and do that. And so that's where it lies at. I know I seen Tyrone ask that question. Do you feel that see that across the board in the Army and the Marines, Air Force, and Navy? Or is it just from the military standpoint? So what we do, and which Coach Uriah spoke about it before in reference to after the MLK, is we provide something like Claiborne talked about. Trey, you got my balls yet? That's part of us providing.
That's a way.
So you know what I'm saying? We provide. We have to get together to coordinate gym time. To us, that means the gym, most likely the time in which they use the gym is not going to be a time in which the gym is open for them to be able to run. And of course, during the same time, you got people. So that means now man hours, even man hours that they pay, or man hours that I volunteer, or I get someone else to volunteer to come sit there while the gym to open the gym. So it becomes that almost like in-kind contribution and stuff like that. And it's a work in progress. I know from on Fort Polk and while I'm here. So, and like I said, it's two levels above me. Well, 3 technically, because there's a supervisor, sports specialist, my SFA director, and then our BRD, or our business and recreation director, who all, and then the MWR director, and then above him, the colonel, the garrison commander, and then above him, the camera. So it's levels to it, like we said, to where people need to buy into it. But like Coach Rice said, if you get the buy-in, that's what you get. Currently on Fort Polk, I'm not sure how much of a buy-in is. And I tell them, I was like, attack from every angle. I was like, hit the garrison sergeant major, the installation sergeant major. If you got officers that's on the team, hey, have them hit. Or you know what I'm saying? It needs to be like a village that's like, hey, hitting the people, because it comes down and then it starts to be, because if they say we want to spend this money, then most likely is for the MWR to be like, okay, this is how we make it happen. And if not, if you can't do it that way, just like Coach Mo was saying, hey, it might need a buy-in. Before I start working with NWR, when I learned about the NBA, I was like, hey, let me find out what's going on. Let me get with these individuals and see what's popping. And then I wasn't even I was just trying to see how to put something together. And so it it was a whole, and I got the information. I took the information. I started learning, and then I started working for MWR. So I continued to pound the concrete and say, hey, how do we get this? Because I don't think it's a bad thing. And then sometimes but I told some people, we might have a buy-in. We might have to foot the bill prior to. And so when you get talking that type of stuff, some people ain't with that. They're not trying to. So that's not the contribution they want to do. They just want to show up and hoop in some instances, in which we're going to get into some point. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say the one thing that I'm going to go back to this. The one thing that bothers me the most, though, is when, like I said, you see a soccer or a softball team at the quote unquote varsity level being sent places, but then your basketball team can't get no support. That's all I say about that. And to go back to what you were saying about hitting the Garrison Sergeant Major and the commander, I know for right now, and I'll give you a team that's an example, and Danny Garrison's probably out there. So Scott Air Force Base. Last year and years past, there's been a struggle for them to even make it to conference games. Okay. This year, I've noticed on their roster is their wing commander. Their wing commander actually is on their roster and plays ball. And Scott Air Force Base this year has gone out to Veterans Day in Colorado Springs and has gone out to here or there. So I just don't know if that's the reason, but support helps.
It comes with the interest level. Honestly, you do. Yep. Like here on Fort Polk, we have one gym to play basketball in. There's 5 gyms, but there's one gym to play basketball in. And I think Commissioner Meyer said it before. Now you have it because the mission has changed. First thing we talked about mission. The mission's changed. So what the mission comes with a certain type of fitness. Basketball may not be considered that type of fitness. So it's more Nautilus machines and hammer strengths and all that type of stuff that are on the floors on tarps as opposed to basketball courts that are able to run. So real quick, I know Coach.
Don't get me started about a $2 million building that was built and then you put fake grass over the basketball courts. Don't even get me started on that. But
all right, Jason, don't get started. Let it go.
Jonathan, Coach Morgan, Coach Daniels, I know y'all popping into the stream. How y'all doing this morning, gentlemen?
Doing good, man.
Doing good, Trey.
All right. So, of course, like you know what I'm saying, moving into onto another topic, right? What could y'all say, or what would y'all be willing to speak on in reference to the competition aspect of it? When we're talking about even one teams linking up or teams not being able to link up or things, what can y'all say to that from a coaching standpoint where we get into the conversation of the competitive process? As I know, if y'all paid attention and heard some of the players, they spoke to it. Some are like, we just want to play. Others are more so like, you know what I'm saying, they want to compete with what they have, stay in that that vein of being loyal to who you came up with or who you running with. What do y'all say to that?
I'll go first because I might not have as much time as you gentlemen. I'll just say this. The way I've always looked at military basketball is at the purest level. And what that means is the guys on my base are going to go play Coach Mo and his guys. And it's just that simple. And it's the guys on my base to wear a uniform is going to play Coach Mo and his guys to wear uniforms. Now, throughout the years, we've expanded. We've allowed, dependents and DOD civilians, and we have these IARR, and we have all these other exceptions that have, I don't want to say infiltrated, if that's the right word, that has become a part of military basketball. But at the core, from my point of view, as someone that's been doing this since the early 90s, that's the core of military basketball. And I feel like as a coach, the art of coaching is going into a gym, standing there, looking at the individuals that you see on your yard, that you see come in and play on Saturdays, that you see come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and taking that group and that core and building from there. That to me, that's the art of coaching. When you might not have all the bullets in your gun, but you're like, okay, how can we go win games? We're undersized. I might not have the guard play. I might not have the big man play. We might not be a good shooting team. Because everybody on here is coach, know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But how can I come up with a scheme? How can I come up with a system so we can still be successful? My point of view, that is the art of coaching. It's coaching versus recruiting. Now, I know enough people. I've been around long enough. I can do that recruiting thing too, as I'm sure everybody else could here too. And I'm pretty sure I could put together a hell of a team and go to any tournament. but that's sort of not how I'm wired. Now, there is a time and place for that, I think, and that's okay. I have no problem. I think it would be cool if maybe, you have a couple of tournaments and maybe we put together a Pac West All-Star team. Or, you have a couple events where I know somebody on one of the Facebook pages had mentioned, getting, I think it was 8 coaches together and getting, the top 80 players, and you go somewhere and you have a draft and you draft your team.
Oh yeah,
Maybe you get a day of practice. See, now
interestingly enough, that's my idea. I sit up and been trying to work some in the background. So yeah, but yeah, I completely understand. Yes,
that's cool to me, right? So nobody is completely against that, but also at the same time, military basketball, this is my opinion, isn't about getting together 4 or 5 all services players from one branch, adding another 2 from another branch, throw a couple of DoD civilians, and build these super teams to compete against normal base built teams, if that makes sense. Like I said, there's a time and place for that, but if it was up to me, every airman, soldier, seaman, Marine will play on their varsity post teams, because that's important, because your better players can help that program too. They help a program build. When I first took over for Luke, it was a blessing for me to have a Cedric Whitaker and an Ollie Bradley, that allowed me to coach them, and that helped our program build, because players are going to flock to those guys, and those guys can help your program in so many ways. So when I see all these, big time players in the military, I don't think they realize the influence that they have in their own backyard and how they can help their local programs really excel. And then you'll still have time to do that other thing, when you want to go and get together with your boys that maybe you play college ball with, or, a couple of cats from other branches that you play at all services with. And, every now and then y'all want to get together and go and hoop. That's cool too. I completely get that. But there's a time and place for that. But I don't think what shouldn't be lost is the fundamental basis of what military basketball is. And that has always been, in my point of view, my base against Al's base, against Ace's base. That's what military basketball is about. And now we have guys that's, been in the military for, a couple of days putting their spin on it. And young fella, no offense, but that's not it.
Mic drop.
All right.
Very eloquently said. Yes,
Coach Morgan, you haven't said anything before I go. You got something on that?
I concur with everything that Coach Parrish said. To me, Coach Parrish out there, Luke, I concur with what he just said. Because to me, when you are coaching at an installation, whether you're Army, Air Force, Marine, Navy, it doesn't matter. You are building your quote unquote super team is the group of guys at your installation, right? So we all, like what we do, and I'm sure some of the other coaches are similar in what they do. We go out and we run our tryouts, right? We'll run tryouts for 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have our roster pretty much, the core of it set by Labor Day weekend, and we're rocking and rolling with that group for the rest of the season, right? So we're going to go through our regular season in hopes of building up for the postseason. Now, we all know that there are open tournaments out there like the Capital Classic, like, Joe Hall, where you can take whatever roster that you want to take there. I mean, I've teamed up with Coach Ace, and we've won the Marico Gray a couple of times when they had that down in Fort Worth, where I brought a couple of my guys, and he had some guys from Colorado. We put together a squad, but we knew what it was going in. So at the same time, I could have taken Tinker down there, but I didn't want to do that because I knew what it was. It's an open tournament. So to me, and in my opinion, and in, like you said, doing this for years, I would rather take my team to tournaments where I know I'm playing other pure teams. And when it comes to the postseason, when I go to a postseason tournament, I want to play other pure teams. I don't want to see your all-stars. And I think what's lost in this is a lot of these kids that are coming in, or young men, I should say, they're not kids. They see some of this stuff going in the NBA, and they have that mentality like, hey, if I can't win where I'm at, then I might need to go join up with my buddy. And if it's allowed, we'll go out here and we'll win a tournament and call ourselves the best in the country. But you didn't grind with them from day one. You guys got together for a weekend, right? And you went down to a tournament in Texas. And then all of a sudden you're hoisting up a trophy, but you just beat teams that have been putting in the blood, sweat, and tears since August. And this tournament happens in April. So that's why I personally choose, and really that's how the NBA formed, to be honest. Because I was down there with Coach Myers and Coach Acevedo. We were sitting on the front row of Chaparral Gym, and Coach Myers, people say all kinds of things. He had just won back-to-back national championships down there, and he went back, down there to support and see what was going on. And we sat there and we watched the team from the East Coast made up of a bunch of all-stars beat Fort Hood, who was a pure team with an all-star roster. And all these guys flew in from 4, 5, 6 different states or whatever it was. And they all flew under the banner of Fort Gordon. And all of a sudden they're hosting up a trophy that, to me, you could say they earned from the tournament, but they didn't grind all year together. They were a group of friends that, like you said, some of them played all service ball. Some of them, they were semi-pro level and left after that tournament to go play semi-pro over in Europe. So to me, that's not pure. That doesn't fall in the pure. And I'm old school too. I'm all for pure rosters. If I build my team in August, that's who I'm going with. I'm not calling in Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant to come help me win a tournament just so I can get a photo op and hoist up a trophy. That's not going to happen. I've taken my lumps, along the way too, just as much as every other coach. But that's a part of coaching. Coaching isn't putting together an all-star roster and standing on the sideline like a glorified fan, watching them go play. And you don't have to make any decisions because the players are doing it all for you. You don't have to make any adjustments. You don't have to, manage any part of the game other than making sure the guys show up in time for the tip. So to me, and I think that's another part of the difference, because I listened in last week to Commissioner Myers and Mr. Richardson. And there are differences between the two. And, whether he admits it or not, in one system, you are allowed to have free agents or whoever you want on your team, and you can call yourself a national champion. And it's okay, because they're all about taking photos and promoting their tournament and making sure that everybody knows that it's the quote unquote granddaddy of them all. Right. That's all they care about. So in the NBA model, it's all about, hey, we want to see the best teams that have grinded all year long with their pure rosters that they have recruited, that they have trained and developed. See, that's another thing that I think that's lost in this, is that even as a coach, you're developing players. One of the greatest joys I've ever had is taking a player that's raw, that may or may not made his high school team, and he comes into the gym and tries out for the base team, and maybe he's talented, as all get up, but maybe his skills aren't refined. Taking a player like that, developing them, and then turning him into, an all-star caliber player. That's one of the greatest joys that I have as a coach. And it's great to have, an all forces person show up on your roster, because that's one person that you don't have to, teach some of the basics to. But one of the greatest joys that I've ever experienced as a coach, no lie, is taking somebody who's raw, and developing them and turning them into a productive player for my team. There's more pride in that. There's more joy in that. In any championship or any games that I went out of that, there's more joy in that than me putting together some all-star squad and then going around beating people and then jumping on social media talking trash. Like, you've been doing something all year. You know what I'm saying? That means nothing to me. That means literally zero to me. So that's part of the reason why, the NBA was formed, was we wanted to play pure teams to play other pure teams, and to provide a path for pure teams to play to see who the best pure team is. You know what I'm saying? So I'll stop, because I can go on.
I like to. Morgan brought up a good point, and about competition. And most of you guys know this guy, and he'll probably be mad I'm gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Anthony Dixon. He go by Delonte. He plays at Fort Worth now. He showed up here at Fort Bliss after we won a national championship down at the NMBT. And for 2 years, he was a bench player, but he kept grinding and practicing and developing. And last year, he was an all-star. And all you know him, he'll drop 30 on you in a heartbeat. And that's what Morgan is talking about. And that's what, I came up in the Army, and I know I'm old as hell, but I came up in that we joined our base team, and there was nobody else but soldiers on that team at Fort Sill. No civilians, no dependents, no veterans, nothing else. And there was great pride in that. And so when I started coaching here at Fort Bliss, then I coached in Baumholder and I coached in Korea, and I came back to Fort Bliss. That's all I do. I have right now on my base, I could probably bring some dependents or some ID card holders. Some civilians. DOD civilians that would rival most teams we've ever seen. I politely turn them around. I let them come practice with us every other Saturday to make us better, but I don't add them to my roster because that's not how I roll. Now, have I been to tournaments that I have brought teams like that? Yes, because the tournament allowed it. But when we started in the NBA and I joined the Central, I didn't have those guys on those teams. So I just want us to make sure we focus on open tournaments are open tournaments.
Yep.
And there's a time and a place for that. Now, when it comes to some of these young service members who are new to the service, whatever service, it's how you're introduced to it. If you're introduced to a free agent type thing, that's what you believe it is. Right. And so it's up on us volunteer coaches that's coaching to ensure that we introduce it to them the right way. When I have guys that leave here and they say, Coach, I'm going wherever, but I want to keep playing for you, I tell them no. You need to go play for that base where you are. Go and pick up those young men there. Show them the grind you went through to become who you are. Right? That's what I tell them. And if we go to a open event, I'll let them come and play with us, and we play together. But we would never go to an open event called Fort Bliss. That would never happen. Because
so basically, what it sounds like all the coaches are saying is basically know the rules and basically play within the platform and what is available to you. Quit trying to complete super teams, as we gonna call them super teams to go participate in these tournaments and try in hopes to bring home hardware because you put together a so-called super team. Play within the parameters of what they have laid out in regards to the rules is what I gather.
I think so. But I want to drop one last thing. Like, reality is this: as coaches, if you're coaching military basketball, again, a unique position. I think you have to know what you're doing it for, and then just decide where you want to be. Right. So everybody's concerned about super teams because everybody's putting teams together to win tournaments. Well, I'm gonna tell you the honest God's truth. As much of a competitor as I am, and everybody on here or that watches is going to know how much of a competitor I am. As much of a competitor as I am, I never coached and I never played military basketball solely for wins, right? I wanted to win every game I played in, but that wasn't the purpose of me playing military basketball. That's why I played high school. That's why I did small college ball. That's why I did those things was solely to win, try to get somewhere playing ball, right? Playing overseas, trying to win, just get to get to the next level. Military basketball, the idea of military basketball is not founded, has never fundamentally been about who wins all the games. There's so much more to what military basketball is. And if you're a coach, you have to decide, why are you coaching and what do I want my program to be about? That's the biggest thing to me. If I'm coaching for pure basketball, me and Paris talked about this years in the first NBA finals. I boast the fact that every team I've ever coached has been pure as far as in any league. And I mean purest to the pure, like what we're talking about. All active duty, no civilians that graduated, played college, none of that. All active duty, regular people that we coached to play basketball. Now, that was the purpose. That was a strategic thing for me to say, hey, I want to build a camaraderie. I want to build a network. I want these guys to have something for physical fitness purposes. I want them to have something for stress relief and for resiliency purposes. That's the purpose of the programs that I put together. I didn't put them together just to win games. Now, the thing is, if you decide that you want to be pure and you're going to uphold the fundamentals of military basketball, there is an avenue for you to go. There's also an avenue if you want to coach to just win games and be the best coach around. I don't have a problem with that. There's an avenue for you to put your super team together and go play in all these open run tournaments. The issue comes in when those open run want to win all the game coaches now want to be a part of a fundamentally different system. So you want to now bring those open run teams into a system that wants to play fundamentally pure teams. You can't do that. And you have to be able to accept that, hey, there's a lane for you. Like I go back to the state of military basketball. There's more opportunity than ever. There is a lane for you if you just want to put teams together and go win games. There's a lane that's perfectly fine. Go do that. Have fun. I don't care what you call it. You can call it national champion. You can call it the greatest basketball team. I don't care what you call it. Go win that. Go do that. The other teams that want to play pure, there's a lane for you as well. You go do that. Now, the problem comes in when those two lanes want to change or complain about each other. It ain't none of your business. It's none of your business. If you're part of the NBA and you want to play in, and we got some comments about the NBA. NBA has to stay careful to not grow too big so that they can remain pure as well, because we're starting to get away from what we were or what it was in the beginning, right? We're starting to reach. We're starting to let other people do other things. So you got to be careful on that aspect too. But if you want to be pure, air quotes, go play in the NBA. If you want to be able to put a super team together, go play in all the open run tournaments. Now, neither one of those two lanes needs to try and tell the other lane how to do their business, because it ain't none of your business. There's enough room for everybody to play basketball. The problem is coming in with these online back and forths, and we won't name drop, but we know who we talking about. When everybody goes back and forth with, you're not a coach, you can't do this or that, that ain't none of your business. It's in an open run lane. That ain't got nothing to do with you. Now, when that person tries to bring that team into a pure lane, now we got a problem. You can't do that, bro. Right? So that to me is where the issue is, right? It comes into, if you have all of these opportunities, why do we have each opportunity trying to control what the other opportunity is doing? Like that's where the dilemma is. That's why back to the state of military basketball, right? That's why it's not as pretty as these tournaments look. It's a lot of stuff that still got to get unraveled. And that's one thing. Nothing wrong with open run tournaments, man. One of the reasons I have never played in, nor coached, nor would I ever play in or coach at the Capital Classic. We just gonna put college players on the floor and play. I'm not doing that. I did the NMBT because me and Carlito were really close friends, so I wanted to support that event. That's the only reason I did that. But I do pure basketball, so I choose to stay in the lanes of pure basketball. I don't tell non-pure basketball how to run their business, or complain about it, or tweet about it, or Facebook about it, because it ain't none of my business. That's the hard truth of what coaches of military basketball need to consume and need to understand. It ain't your business. You have a choice. Where you want to play, go play there. Leave the other people alone, man. Ain't none of your business.
That kind of factors in. Hold on, boss man. So that kind of factors into one of the things I feel is the issue with the state of the military basketball. It's too much politics and ego. We can't do what we want to do on the floor because people's egos and this politics about open versus pure. Don't get me wrong. I have my lane and I stay in. I'm pure. I'm binning. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, there's a time and a place for both. One worried about the other one, when in actuality there's so much basketball that could be played if people get out their feelings and their egos, and they could do that.
Yep.
And I feel for the players, that's where a lot of the players stand is too much politics. Basketball's not fun. When Jason found me at Riley, I quit basketball for like 4 years because it wasn't fun no more.
Yep.
I love this game, but everything my being in it. My kids play this game. But when it becomes a point to where it's too much, this person did this and this, and this, man, no one wants to be around that. No one wants to deal with that. And I feel that hurts the state of military basketball right now. That's what I got. Let you old guys have it, though.
I was just gonna say I agree with all y'all 1,000%, and yeah. The only thing that I will put my spin on it is you are who you are. In other words, if you are a super team or a bunch of guys that got together from a different installation and you go to a tournament, know the rules, and if that tournament allows it, great. That's perfect. That's what that tournament is. Then just say that's who you are. You're the traveling Harlem Globetrotters. It don't matter. Don't put a base name across your chest and pull in other players from other installations and say you are base X.
But look at this, Jason. Let me rebut that a little bit.
Sure.
What there is, first of all, if I put and I'll use McDill because I'm down here in Florida, right? And I have nothing to do with McDill. Disclaimer, that has nothing to do with me. If I put McDill on a uniform and I take 12 guys from all over Florida and we go win a tournament, if it's not your tournament, why do you care?
No, I don't.
No, I'm not.
Got it. They shouldn't. They
right.
should.
Why should anybody care? It's not your base. It's not your tournament. Why should anybody care? And then here's the thing. I don't have a problem with them doing it at an open tournament because look at this. If they go and win Capital Classic or they go and win the NMBT with McDill on their chest, it may give them leverage to go to the one person from McDill because that Fort Gordon thing, right? Bird was the only person that was from there. He got his team from everywhere else. That may give Bird enough chance to go back to Gordon as leverage and say, yo, we just won a national So whether now, how many of the Garrison installation commanders are going to really dive into who's on that roster? Not a lot of them. But the fact that you're getting publicity of Gordon winning a national basketball tournament may be able for him to use his leverage to say, hey, man, can we get $500 for this, $1,000 for this season? Can we use it? May be, but it doesn't hurt the tournament or the people that aren't involved. It's none of their business.
No.
But can I say this real quick? Ask a real question. But was it really Fort Gordon though? Is it really Fort Gordon though?
Well,
in the tournament.
Here's the thing.
Okay. I'm listening.
To answer that, yes, it was Fort Gordon. As far as Fort Gordon, the representative as the coach, being tied to Fort Gordon, it would authorize him to use the name.
But the team. But I get what you're saying. But
they just do it.
That part. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Well, this is the thing. There is no authorization from Fort Gordon as far as if you're saying that he asked for to use the name. I seriously doubt he did. However, did Fort Gordon give him any support or any use or any assistance? I absolutely doubt they did that as well.
Probably didn't.
So for me, right, for us sitting here saying, but is it we're not Fort Gordon Garrison, so should we care? Now, if the Garrison comes back and says, or if the wing commander comes back and says, hey, wait a minute, man, this ain't canon. I didn't authorize this. If I'm the canon coach, I got to now deal with the commander and be like, hey, man, I used the name unauthorized or whatever, and I got to deal with that, right? But we sitting here saying, but is he Fort Gordon? But am I Fort Gordon? Like, do I care? Do I care if somebody else uses another installation's name that I'm not tied to, I'm not associated with, and I'm not under the control of? Why do I care?
But doesn't that hurt the integrity of the tournament, though?
So Mo, to what you said about
I get you what you're saying, but that should be a concern of the tournament director.
I get it.
There you go. Now I'm the tournament director, and I say, hey, wait a minute, bro. Like you ain't got Fort Gordon. I can't let you come in here under Fort Gordon. You need to change the name to the Eagles or whatever the hell. You need to change the name because y'all not a Fort Gordon team. That would be the intent. Now we're talking something different. Now we're talking the show you had a couple shows ago. Right now, the tournament director should be having the integrity to say, wait, you can bring that team, but you can't call it Fort Gordon because that's not Fort Gordon.
That part.
I'm not the tournament director.
So
if they don't have the integrity to say, yo, you can bring that team, bro, but call it something different, that's on them. That makes the product look bad.
I said this before, that in these open tournaments, it's up to the tournament director to fix the optics.
Yep.
Right? And the optics is the tournament directors, if they're open tournaments, should look at the rosters and tell the people that's coming, if you have guys that are not from your base, like I coach Fort Bliss, but I'm going to any one of these open tournaments, the tournament director should tell all of us, if you're not bringing a base team, you need to find a name for your team.
Change the name.
But if the tournament directors don't do it, then guys would do whatever they're doing,
whatever they want.
And Mo hit the head on the he hit it right on the head. These open tournaments, it is on the tournament directors, and it is on us coaches to hold the tournament directors accountable for their rules. and for the things they do.
Yep.
We hold them accountable.
Cut the check,
We ain't
Trey.
got all this complaining. If we're mad that they're letting, if we don't like that they're letting teams come there that are all-star teams representing a base, and we say nothing or we pay our money and play in it, why the hell would they stop it?
Yeah. So here's the thing. When I'm look even with like looking at what pops up with Mike talking about the universal nature of military basketball, because it's being called a military tournament or the national championship or whatever case may be. There is only an association to things when we give them power by we pay attention to things that we don't control or we're not a part of, we're not vested in. So yes, like we say, the tournament director needs to decide, the integrity of your product. You don't need to let them call themselves McDill because you know that's not McDill Air Force Base. That's one level. The second level is if I'm not part of that tournament, it's not my tournament. I'm not part of that lane. I don't care what they're doing in the Capital. To me personally, I don't care what the Capital Class is doing. Great tournament, one of the longest standing tournaments. Yay, that's good. I don't care. I'm not involved in that. I'm not invested in that. So now when something's posted and I read all of this nonsense going on the social media, I'm thinking half the people commenting on there wasn't even there. I don't get that. I don't understand that. Like, why is it an issue? You chose not to go because you knew it wasn't going to be pure. That should be the end of your conversation about it. What's the surprise that a college team the Capital Classic? That happens every year. What are we talking about? Why are we surprised about that? So to me, it really does come down to, do what you choose to do, what's in your heart to do, and then you can't control everybody else. And then now, if I'm on the other side of that and I'm hosting something or I'm leading something, I have to do what's in my heart. I have to look at my integrity and say, I'm not going to allow y'all to make my product look a certain way. Think about this. I coach a high school team. I'm authorized to have a AAU for my high school team, which I do. I have an AAU that's connected to my high school team. I legally don't coach it. I can't coach it. That's the rules, right? But my high school team in the offseason plays in an AAU tournament. I don't even have my high school team in that AAU tournament named the same. Because when the season rolls around next year, some of them kids might get cut. Some of them kids might graduate. Some of them kids might, whatever the case may be. So I know it is not my high school team that's playing in the summer. So with my own integrity, I just changed the name. Now, you look at the AAU circuit, they do the same thing. I couldn't go into AAU circuit with any resemblance of my high school name. Not the real AAU. Now, these local stuff you probably could, but the real circuit wouldn't allow me to because they're going to say that's not your high school. So that goes both ways. That goes on me as the coach and the leader of the program, as well as the organizer or the runner of the director of whatever tournament or event. It's a two-way street. What you won't have is you won't have me not go to an event with my AAU team because I know that there's some funny business going on. And then on the flip side, turn around and put up a post about the funny stuff going on in the other tournament. That's to me, that's we grown men. And we soldiers. Where do they do that at? Only place we do that at is in military basketball.
And I think some of that, we put Coach Mo, to what you're speaking is it also falls into what Commissioner Myers was just saying. In this day and age, of course, back when y'all was doing it, it wasn't social media. It was word of mouth. Now with social media, there's going to be that comparison for the most part. If you see a couple of players that played on base X that are now on social media and they're running with open team C, the correlation is going to be, 5 of those players is from base X and they're on open team C. That's base S open team. And that's some of the angst in it too, to where that's starting to be what it is. Like here, when I deal with my intramurals, I'm consistent. I'm big on competition, huge on competition, and I consistently be on these teams. Like, okay, I have sit up and went through 3 years in which I finally figure out, okay, when I'm doing Commander's Cup, this is what this is for. We have an open. This is what this is for. Just like y'all said at the top of the hour, y'all was talking about. There's a lane for this, and I just said it the other night when I told them, I was like, if you wasn't on a roster when I sit up and ask for rosters at the beginning of this, then you can't play. Or even if at least if you started at the beginning of this, you can't. You was good. You can't play now. I was like, if you want to, I was like, we'll be done on Thursday. Come Friday, you can come in here and do whatever y'all want. But right now, that's not what this is. So it comes down to, in the sense of, but for me, it's like the most draininess thing, because you still, which I was getting ready to get to, it becomes chess, not checkers. I be having to play chess against these people, or the ones who are putting together their teams, because everyone tries to find a loophole.
Right. And you should have to deal with that, Trey. You absolutely should have to deal with that in intramural basketball.
But in a mirror, true. Yes, in a mirror, that's true. That's why I created Opens and Commanders Cup, because our Commanders Cup is strictly, it belongs to the service members directly in that, because it's the generals program.
And
varsity,
sounds familiar.
In varsity basketball, you shouldn't. That's the point I'm making.
Yes, exactly.
In I-9, that's what they call it here in Florida.
I-9. Yeah.
I-9 sports, you should deal with nonsense like where daddy's trying to stack their. In high school and college, we shouldn't deal with it. And that's the same separation that you would have, right? In intramurals, yes. Varsity, no. But I think it really boils down, like, it's clear cut. And even with the players, like, I agree totally with G. Like, the players have a problem with it. It's not fun, because you got coaches that have not done what Al's talking about, or what I know I've done, or I know what Ace has done, where it's the standard. Nobody at Cannon Air Force Base, and I have some really nice players. Nobody ever accepted offers to go with other teams to play in these open run tournaments. They never did. Not because but because they knew that me as a coach, I stood for pure basketball. So when everybody hit up Ray and everybody hit up Jason, that, yo, come run with us because you nice, they was like, nah, because I'm rocking with my team. So now the kid that everybody's on social media about, we won't call his name, but he went and played in the Capital Classic and then missed something with his team, and now everybody's in an uproar. That's the coach's responsibility. If you're allowing your guys to go play open runs, there are going to be some possible back difficulties. They may not make it to the next game. That is your decision. You can say, hey, look, fellas, you on this team, you playing with us. If you want to go play in the open runs, fellas, best of luck. I hope you do. Go play, have a good time, but you can't be part of the base team. I can make that decision. I can't. What I can't do is be like, yo, he real nice, man, and I know everybody gonna want him to play, but I need him to help me win games too. And then when he go play in a tournament and then he don't help you win a game, now you mad. Wait a minute, bro.
Coaches are built different, Mo. Coaches are built different, but
that's what I'm saying.
Is that a problem though? Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that as a problem if you have a player that you decide to take your player team, your pure team, because you want to go compete and you want to see how y'all measure up against that team? Is that a problem if that player decides in an open tournament to sit up and like, I want to go run with my mans in them, as opposed to run with their pure team?
Hold on, Mo. That's their, like I was going to say, each coach is different. Each coach on this call is different. Some coaches might stand for that. Some coaches might be like, I bet. Another coach might be like, hell no. Bro, if we in this tournament, you going to either run with us because you with us or you not. Other coaches might say, do what you got to do, and we'll see you when you get back. Everybody's built different. Each coach.
But do y'all see what? But Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Jason. All y'all see what Mr. Johnson is saying, Justin?
Yeah. So
I got. Go ahead, Al.
You see these comments in which he's saying same roster beginning to finish the hand, the PCS and the TDYs and the deployments.
We got that.
Let me address that. So okay. I don't ever close my roster. So I have tryouts in June, sometime in August, right? And I never close and I tell my players up front, I don't close my roster because we're a military team, teams, players, PCS in and out, TDY deployments. Now, what you have to do, if you PCS in, go on a deployment or whatever, you have to earn minutes on the floor with what you do at practice. So if you've been playing for me since June, a guy shows up in November and he outworks you. So that guy might come from Benning. And Ace told me he coming and he a superstar over there. I ain't finna put a jersey on him. He show up on Wednesday. We got game Saturday. His ass ain't playing with me, right? He gonna do the time and earn his spot. And to illustrate that, there's a guy that came to me from Bragg in 2015. Coach contacted me, said he was coming, said he was a go-getter. He shows up to practice, and I tell him, hey, join practice. This is what we doing. Hey, we guard heavy here. You're going to have to earn minutes. And he went a weekend that he didn't play. We went up to Colorado to play games. That was his first weekend he was allowed to play. Just so happened, his uniform, the bag of uniforms was left back in the barracks. So he felt like we were hazing him or whatever. Once we got the uniform there for him to play, he went in the second half and scored 25, right? He earned the right to play on that team by his play in practice and on the court. Now, he showed up, and when he was here, he was all tournament, and he left and went back to Bragg and was all tournament. And most of you guys know him, but I'm not, it's Marcus Brown. But he could tell you that when he got to Bliss, he had to earn his way on the team. And so that's why you let your guys know. So that's why I don't ever close my roster. But this notion of that, can we maintain a roster? Yes, we can. My roster always about 38 people.
Man,
I checked about like 38 people.
Al, let that go, man. Like Jay a cool dude, but the reality is he just started. He's younger. He's just getting started. He's a great dude, and I think he's gonna be a heck of a coach. But he's gotta spend some more time and understand. Military basketball been going on forever. This ain't new. Deployments and TDYs, it ain't new. Going to the field, it ain't new.
Look at what Tyrone Bill just said. We talking all Air Force, all Army, all Armed Forces for years. Look at what he just said.
Yeah,
That's the answer to that question.
So listen, let me say this from the conference's standpoint, and to address what Justin's saying, and like Mo said, Justin's a new coach down there at Fort Sam, so he's still grasping on to things. We do not lock the rosters at the conference level, and every coach on this call is either currently in or coached the team in my conferences. We do not lock the rosters. You are authorized 22 players on your roster at any one time the entire year, go throughout the entire year. You can mix, match, do whatever you want as long as you have only a maximum of 22, because we all know that schools, TDYs, deployments, duty, staff duty, all that stuff's going to come into play. And we don't want to lock you down to 15 and say that's all you have for the year, and then you're short 6-5 guys because of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. The only time, and all these coaches can tell you, the only time when we lock the roster is 1 week prior to the conference tournament. And then that roster is locked for the entire conference tournament and the NBA playoffs. And we do that for a reason. We understand what Justin is saying. We understand. And I tell every new coach that comes on, and every one of these guys on here has heard this from me at one point in time, you will not finish the season with who you started. It's just a fact of military basketball. We understand that intricacy. And that's why we, at least in the NBA and the conferences, have what we have and allow it. Because like Al said, like Justin said, like Mo said, it's going to happen. You're going to have guys that leave. You're going to have guys that get hurt. You're going to have guys that deploy. You're going to have guys that go to school. Military basketball is so different. You can't compare it to college. You can't compare it to the pros. You can't compare it to high school, AAU, because of all these intricacies. The mission is first. This is supposed to be for esprit de corps, competition, bonding together with your brothers, playing. Camaraderie, all that. We take that into account. And again, I'm speaking from the conference standpoint.
Yeah.
I rotate coaches so many during the year and from year to year. And most of these guys on this call have been there for a while, but some of these guys are just coming in, like Mo said. And they all know my number, and they can call me if they have a question. I just got a call. Matter of fact, Mo from Cannon's coach the other day in reference to something. And I answered his question. He's like, okay, I didn't know that. And that's fine. And that's what I'm here for. But yeah, we don't lock the roster. Now, what a coach does at his program or his installation, there's Justin there. It is what it is. Whatever a coach does at his level, like again, if Paris says, hey, here's my tryouts, my roster's locked, and we're not going to open again until January or whatever, that's a coach's decision. But at the conference level, as long as you update your roster with me, 22 guys max, all the way up until 1 week before the tournament, and that's when we lock them.
Yeah, and I think the point. I think the point is valid as far as, or the response is valid. I think the point is he's saying is with all of that movement and all of that people in and out, if somebody loses players, they don't have enough to fill the roster. Then grabbing other players or mixing players, mixing installations and things like that. Then does that become a viable option? And I understand where you're going at it with it, Jay. I just say that the answer to that is no. If you don't have the roster you had to start with, then you play with what you got. If you can book, Cannon went through an entire season, 23-2, 23-2. we beat the hell out of everybody for the entire year. The day before we go up to the finals, we get a call in the middle of the night. We're special operations installation. We got a call in the middle of the night about 4:00 in the morning. I found out I was going to have 7 people to go to the tournament. I went to the tournament with 7 people, and we got down to 4? We finished the game with four players through injuries and fouls, where we couldn't finish the game. We lost the game to get to the Final Four by 1 point. But I had a team that hadn't lost. It happens. I could have. Should I mix? Should I make a phone call to Dias at the time?
That's the question. That's the question.
Like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna tighten up my boots and we're gonna go with what we got. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of military basketball. And then that's the reality if you so choose to be a purist type team. That's the reality of what you're choosing. Now remember what I said though in the beginning. The flip side is don't come into the NBA, be an open run team and play in all the open tournaments like Carson did. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that at all. But you can't come into a purist organization or somebody that's trying to have a purist lane and then dictate that they change because all your players went TDY. Like, no, bro, they don't need to change. You may have to change where you participate based on your circumstances, but the lane doesn't need to change because you feel like I want to add people from Lackland and wherever else. No, it don't work that way.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of how that happened the opposite way. And this coach is actually on this call. Okay. Cal's team at Fort Sam had a horrible regular season. He couldn't get guys together. They were here, there, wherever. They were missing this, that, whatever. They were going to games with 5, 6, calling me, Jay, I got 4. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but we're going to go anyway, whatever. They finished the season 13 in the regular season out of 15. They come up to Wichita State, play the tournament, the Central's tournament. They make a run all the way to the championship game. Okay, till I think they lost to Bliss. I think it was Al. I think they lost to y'all that year in the championship game. And then get invited to the NBA Finals, the first NBA Finals, make a run there and win the whole thing. So just because you start bad or start with where you don't have what you think you might have doesn't mean you can't finish strong. And Cal's team was a testament to that year. Yeah. So it goes both ways.
Hey, Jay, I think I know what Coach Justin is going through at Fort Sam.
I know you do.
It's a training base. I mean, we have tryouts with like 5 active duty guys that show up because those guys are training instructors. There's some really talented, I'm talking about 6'10", 7-foot guys that are instructors. They just can't play. They don't have the time to get off. So we end up having to pull from, going by the NBA rules. We'll get dependents or contractors or whatever just to fill out the roster. I would tell Justin, hey, I don't trust none of these guys. They'll tell me they'll be with you. They could get mad at you over playing time, etc. So I'll add 25 guys, 30 guys. I don't care because I know that somebody's going to flake out. Somebody's going to get PCS or whatnot. And like you said, Jason, that whole year, hey,
you were struggling.
You gotta be okay with taking a loss, man. Sometimes you don't have it.
What are we here? That's it.
So if you ain't got the team, you just enjoy the moment. Make sure your guys enjoy the season. Create those memories. That's what my guys. We still keep in contact.
Everybody knows that if you play in the conferences,
it's all about that.
The conference tournament. You could be 0-16 as long as you finish your season and make the games. You're going to at least get the opportunity to show up at the conference tournament. Now, what you do from there is on you.
But Cal, like even speaking to that, because I remember that season because you came up to Cannon and you actually played. We beat the hell out y'all. You was actually on the court. I was like, yo, this is great.
A couple times.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a sore loser. I still had that player part of me. I'm a sore loser.
But real quick before we move on to the next topic, Cal, even in that situation though, you didn't go outside and turn into I'm gonna do the open team rules to compete and win games. You still stuck by the guidelines, right?
Of course. I mean, we went in there knowing we knew how good Cannon was, and I'm like, all right, let's try to make the best of it.
That's it.
I pretty much every year, every game, every weekend that regular season, I was bracing myself because I knew it was coming with like 6 or 7 guys that, I knew all my guys that I had on the shelf that couldn't make weekends. I was like, okay, it's going to all work out in the end. Let's get all these other guys experience. And they should relish that. When you're short-handed, the guys that normally would be on the bench in a normal situation.
Get that playing
That's when you
time.
build them up. Let them
Yep.
get all that experience, those late game situations. It all works out, man.
That just speaks to the grind that we were talking about earlier, though. Grinding through an entire season with the guys, whether it's your star players, whether it's your bench players, and you work all the way through the season, and then you get something like Cal did at the end, and it makes it that much sweeter. Now, I know Dave wanted to say something. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so like this season right here, I've had 3 weekends where I've had 3 of my all-stars, you know what I'm saying? Well, I say my all-stars on my team that haven't been made it. They was either in the field, it was TAD, but that gives a coach an opportunity to bring another player off the bench. Hey, you think you can earn your superstars minutes? Then let's get in here and earn your minutes. Now, those weekends didn't pan out great for us, but it's a building process for my team. So when those superstars are not there permanently and they got a PCS, they got to move or whatever, that gives opportunity for those next guys to come up. You know what I'm saying? And it helps the coach be a better coach too, because now you're trying to coach a player that's less talented to try to make sure you still get wins. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a great thing to have a bigger roster so you can have that flexibility and movement. Because I think all y'all know the Marines, they always in the field, they always deploying. So I got like 4 guys in deploying right now.
Hey, Trey, I see Justin's comment there, and I just want to address that real quick.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Me and Al, as far as the bylaws go, we understand that there are bases out there that are not part of the NBA or don't have enough for a team or too small or whatever. And we have addressed that in our bylaws, and every coach on here, and Justin should have it as well, has a copy of that. So yes, to just address what Justin was saying, if there is a nearby base that's not participating in the NBA, right, and there are a couple players there, we have the exceptions. We have the categories 1, 2, and 3, right? So if Justin wants to use his exemptions for 3 players, active duty, guard, reserve players from another base that's not in the NBA, that's the closest base to him to play, yes, those active duty guys can come play with you. But now you're giving up your exemptions for your GS civilians, your contractor, your dependent, and your veteran. So it's a trade-off. And again, because one of the things coaches said to us in the offseason was we want to be able to GM our teams. So, okay, here we go. We're allowing you to GM your teams. So if you want to take that trade and take those 2 or 3 guys from a team or a location that's not in the NBA that's closest to you and use those guys as opposed to using your exemptions of your GS civilian, your contractor, your dependents on your installation or your veteran, you can have those 3 guys because we allow those 3, 2 from category 2 and 1 from category 3. So that's a trade-off that a coach has to make that decision and GM his team. So to answer Justin's question, you can use those guys. You would just give up your exemptions.
And I see what Justin's saying. It just seems like he's just speaking and saying that he's like Coach Cal said, he understands, he sees his pay, and he's just at that installation to where he could be at a Fort Hood and not have to be worried about that type of stuff. So I definitely see. But so it's who's about to say something? Go ahead.
I'll make it quick. I'll make it quick. So in regards to Justin saying about Fort Sam, because of the kind of players they have there, or the training environment and all that. So we understand that, but you also got to look at a base like Lou, who is a small base, right? But Paris gets on his grind and makes sure guys show up to his practices and his team and are loyal to him. So there's 2 ways to look at that. You can either say it's a challenge at my base because guys don't want to commit or they have other commitments, so I want to go and reach out to other people. Or you can dig in and go find those guys, go to the gym, watch intramurals, go on Saturdays, go on Tuesdays, go on Thursdays, go watch guys play and bring them in. Go recruit those guys that's on your base. That's what I do. If I see a dude in the PX at 6'8", I'm talking to him, right? When I'm at practice, I'm always looking on the other side. And my guys ask me, Coach, what you looking for? Somebody to take your spot? I'm always at it, and I have a large base here at Fort Bliss, so talent is all over the place, right? Sometimes they just don't know. So I get it that you have bases that are challenges because of their mission, and Mo is every year we played Mo, he's rarely had the same team from the beginning because his guys go out in the drop of a hat. But what he has stuck to is what we just been talking about, is that if he will not go find somebody at Kirtland to come fill his roster because he only got 6. He going to coach them 6 guys up. If they take a beating on week 2 and week 3, By the time he get to the playoffs, like Cal did, he got his whole roster available. Now those guys that didn't play, when you need them because somebody in foul trouble, they ready to go. So I always turn that back on the coach. You have now got to coach your team. If you go with 6, you go with 6. If you have 10, you go with 10. But don't go looking outside your base because it's going to be easier to do that. That's my caveat to that.
But the thing, Trey, I think you see the comment. I know for me, like listening to everybody and seeing even the comments, like the comment thing when you say the state of military basketball, when you talk about the reality of what everybody has to deal with, it comes to me as the coaches, the volunteer coaches, underappreciated, overworked, not paid at all. The hardest volunteer job I think I've ever done in my life. That's the real part of this whole thing that matters. And that's whether it's open run tournaments, whether it's pure, whether it's NBA, whether it's wherever you want to play basketball. When you deal with military basketball, the reality is whoever's in charge, that coach, that's the determining factor. So yeah, bro, like if you a Sam, you might have to realize like, hey, every year we're gonna be 13, 14, 15 in the league because we're not gonna have everybody all year. But we already proved we can coach it up, we can work it out, and when we get to the tournament, we got a shot to win. But if you're in the mentality of I'm gonna coach and I'm just gonna go out 20 games, 30 games a year, it might not be where you at. So now is that to make a decision. Like, is coaching military basketball really for you? Is that because military basketball bear the brunt of the responsibility? I don't care about funding, travel. I don't care about nothing. Every problem that military basketball faces, the coaches are the solution.
I've been on both sides of the spectrum too, and I can say that coaching at a base like Cannon or Luke, somewhere where you're gonna have the active duty guys, and there's no distractions. There's no nearby bases where these guys are jump and go to if they don't like the way the things are going. I've always had great buy-in in terms of practice. Like when I coached at Lackland, we were like 15 deep in practice every time because they're all active duty guys. I played for Moody Air Force Base in CMAC, small base, no other base nearby. The buy-in was heavy, and then you get stationed at a base like Fort Sam, where you don't have many players, and now you're sticking with you actually got dependents that are more committed than your active duty guys, or you got contractors that are there. Not even getting but 3 minutes a game, but they're showing up more than the guys that are active duty getting 3 minutes a game. It's different. You can get spoiled. I can say on both sides. You can get spoiled as a coach being at Fort Sam, and then going to an active duty base, and vice versa. It's not going to be the same.
But it is though, Cal, because on both of those aspects, like I remember you at Lackland and at Sam, and I did the same thing at Eglin and at Cannon. Right, I've experienced big bases everywhere, distractions with Eglin Air Force Base, the beach right there, and then going to Cannon where there's no distraction, no base. So we've been on both. But the one thing that I guarantee you, answer me this though, Cal, your consistency as a coach has been the same. So your program and the results have been the same. Maybe it's harder or it's easier in one location, but you being consistent as Cal has been a constant. You haven't changed how you coach, what you expect, the rules that you follow. You didn't go from Lackland to Sam and then turn into I'm gonna build an all-star team because we don't have to. No, you remain consistent, right?
True.
That is the one thing that I'm saying. The bases differ, the situations differ, the coaches, their philosophy, their style. If it remains the same, then none of the other stuff matters. It may be harder or easier. I give you that, but you're still the same. So the coaches are the real fundamental or the real foundation of military basketball, not the players. The coaches that come in and establish who they are, how they're going to run their operation, whether you're at Lackland with a bunch of options or at Sam, no options. If you remain the same, everything else rolls.
Yeah, so, I think it goes back to what I said. Like, it's unfortunate sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. You're gonna have a losing season.
It's gonna be.
We just got to be okay with that, man. Everybody can't be number one every year.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm gonna be mad about it, but I'm okay with it.
Hey, I think that's very important. What you just said, Cal, is that as a coach, especially in a program, you have to accept that it might not be your year. You know, I've taken 5 to the NBA finals before and had a dude foul out and had to get on the court. And sometimes it's just part of that process, man, of building your brand and building your program. But if you keep grinding, you'll get there. But as a coach, though, I think that was very important what you just said, that sometimes as coaches, everybody on here has had to realize this ain't our year. You know, and I can't go down to DM and get some of their dudes that ain't hooping, or run to Yuma and get some of them dudes that's not hooping. You know, I just got to take it and, you know, and make ourselves better for next year. But, you know, some coaches get in trouble when, you know, you constantly trying to win, and that's when you can compromise yourself. But you 100% right. Sometimes it's just not your year, but in a way that can be beneficial too, because you're still laying the foundation and you still bringing it up that next group of players is you know, what Dave just sort of hit on. So it's not exactly a lost cause. You know, you just got to be farsighted instead of short-sighted, because you are still helping build your foundation with those 2 or 3 key players that's going to be there with you through the test of time.
Paris, you're the perfect example of, not only is it building that program and everything, but it's building your credibility as a coach. That first year you came in, Paris, I remember distinctly, you was getting your head smacked. I remember wholeheartedly, like, you was having it rough too, right? But your credibility of sticking it out, still coaching up your guys, still. So now when the Ali Bradleys and the Whitakers come around, they have no problem falling in line. Back to the experience we just talked about, right? They have no problem saying, yo, this dude was giving 110% when he had a bum squad. We gonna come in now as ball players, and we gonna give him the same effort because he's gonna give it to us now that he got a good squad. He stayed consistent. So even to this comment about James Lewis saying, how do you deal?
I'm gonna get to that.
Oh yeah, how you deal with the other teams and stuff that don't believe it goes back to what I said. There's 2 lanes, man. I believe a certain way. I mean, I coach and I play in a certain lane that supports what I believe.
Yep.
And
Go ahead, Commissioner Jason.
I stay out of it.
No, so I was gonna say 2 things. One thing is, I tell this to coaches all the time: there are programs and there are teams. And if you know the difference, you're probably a program. If you don't know the difference, you're probably a team. Okay, that was the first thing I was going to say to that. Each one of these coaches on here, and most of the coaches around the country, are striving to build their programs. But there's other coaches out there that they're just a team, and they're a team for a weekend or a team for a month or whatever. But to address what James was saying, and what I wanted to address there is, he says what we're saying is true in reference to players being from installation areas in the conferences, and all these coaches on here know, and most of them in the conferences should know. If you feel that there's somebody that's on that team that's not from that installation or not vetted through the process of being able to play with that installation, there's a challenge process in the NBA and the conferences. Okay, that coach can go ahead and call me up, and then we'll go through the process, and I'll contact the other coach, and then there's a process that they have to do to show me how that player is valid for that team. And if that player is not valid in that team by our bylaws, that team will forfeit every game that player's played in. And that's just the fact as far as that. When it comes to the playoffs, and all the coaches know this as well, when you come to the conference tournament, your players are going to come with your roster that's locked in, that we're already going to have, right? You're going to come with a set of orders that shows that player is from that installation, okay, or from the nearby installation that we've already vetted is good to play for you, and you're going to have your ID card with you. One of the ID cards that we allow for our bylaws, whether it's from the veteran's point of view, whether it's from the contractor, GS civilian independent, or active duty guard reserve. That's how we do have a process, and I think that's what James is speaking of as far as vetting them and verifying. We have a process in the conferences and in the playoffs that we validate and vet our players at any level that we need to. So I hope that addressed that.
Okay, so basically, instated is there's a process that y'all have in place that y'all go through to do
Most
that for compliance, definitely. So, real quick, I want to go back before I get into I want to go back and address what Coach Rye was asking. So, per what I was talking earlier in speaking in talking about the installations and all that type of stuff. So, for us, what we do is we go through it and we have to conduct get a MOI constructed. Then we send that MOI to legal, and legal looks at that. So in some cases, depending upon what legal says or what the base installation states, then they want to, some may or may not want to support there being civilians, GS players, or veterans or anything like that, that play on said teams are considered to be varsity, the varsity team. But what we have going forth, and hence the reason, like Commissioner Myers had a conversation with my SFA director, I think last week, and where I told her, because when I was having the meeting with the varsity level teams, or the people that wanted to be a part of varsity level teams, we had the conversation, and per what I knew of the NBA bylaws, that was the conversation that came up, because from my directors, her standpoint was active duty only. In which, you know what I'm saying, it happens, just like Coach was talking about active duty. But for us, so I was like, well, I had to break it down to her. I was like, you know what? As opposed to just hear from me, I'll get you in connection with the person you hear straight from the horse's mouth, so you can have an understanding, because I don't want to mix any words or mislead. And so for that, from the question which Coach Uriah was asking, that is the perspective when it comes down to us on Fort Polk. And I don't know if that's across the board of other installations, but it just becomes a determination what even one MWR directors and above, or the garrison commander and stuff, will allow from that aspect. Some organizations.
So Trey, so with that, from our point of view, from my point of view and the conference's point of view, right? We have a set of rules. We have a set of bylaws. Okay. Mm-hmm. If your installation MWR, your installation commander wants active duty, guard, reserve only on your installation, me as the conference commissioner, I'm going to support you 100%. We do not trump the installation guidelines. Mm-hmm. So if another installation says, oh, the NBA allows active duty, guard, reserve, DOD, civilian contractor dependents, okay, well, coach, you can do that because that's what they allow. But if another installation says, like Paris's does and like Dave's does, and that Fort Hood did, Al got a hand up. Then that's what your installation allows. That we support what your installation allows. Mm-hmm. But we do have our rules and guidelines and bases or whatever, because we know not all bases are created equal, mm-hmm. as you just pointed out. And so whatever your installation allows is what we support you, as long as it's within the framework of our bylaws.
And so even that, what you be saying, it goes back to what Coach Mo was even saying earlier, when you're talking about the whole, if you can put free agents on your team and you want to have a pure roster, just don't put the free agents on your team, and it still comes out the same thing, which it comes back instantly to what the individual coach or whoever is the director, the individual that's planning it, or, you know what I'm saying, it's like you put things are in place. Yeah, a good organization go forth and they cover all the bases as possible for the most part. You're going to have situations where things come up. When those things come up, then you do what you do to cover those, to set up and close, as I say, close loopholes, or to basically fine tune it to where it is a product. And in state, what I see and what I'm hearing is you can't satisfy everybody, and which you're not going to be able to do for the most part. So. Yes.
So Trey, I'll give you this. So Trey, check it. I'll give you this one, right? Yes, I just had a tournament. I had a tournament like in February, right? So my installation campaigns and my sports office, they support my program. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna say fund it, right? Like other people say, come on and say fully funded. It's not like that, right? But they do support my program. They say if you hold a tournament here, everybody that comes to your tournament must be active duty, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's the guidelines that we play under, right? So when they came to my tournament, everybody that came to my tournament had to be active duty somehow, some shape. You know what I'm saying? Some shape or form. But it completely goes up to, what support you get, and the support you get, you know what I'm saying? You got to follow those rules and guidelines.
That's it. And that's what it is. And that's why we have to do that. That's why we had to do that MRI, and that's why it seems like it's taking so long, because we and like some people might say move the goalposts, but it keeps on coming up. So my portion of it is like, I want to make sure that we cover as best we can what we can. I don't want to sit up and go back after do a revision after revision after revision, right. Because so it's like I want to have all the information so we can go forth. I've even reached out to installations across the Army to ask, what is it that you're doing to get a comprehensive look at it? Because I know some are supporting, some aren't supporting, and there's I've got some things. It was only so far in that trek, in doing that, I've only gotten really two installations out of maybe 10 that have said that they support military basketball or varsity sports for the most part. I even had one, as opposed to send me a MOI in reference to them supporting the supporting that type of program, they sent me the letter that was written on why they can't support that program. So again, I'm getting that. At this point, I'm researching, I'm info checking and seeing, so that way I know for putting forth a good product potentially for them to set up to be able to tap in on. The
Trey,
bylaws, rules are potentially.
Trey, can I
Go
throw
ahead.
something at that real quick? What you
Yes,
read,
sir. Go ahead.
like
Go
it's
ahead.
real to me. It is very it's not that difficult, right? If you're asking for funding I'm like Dave with that. If you're asking for support, right, it might not be in the form of money or whatever, but if you're asking for support, and the people that are giving you support give you a list of guidelines that you have to go by, then you adjust as the coach to those guidelines. Now, if they're saying that your team has to be fully pure, and the league is saying you can have contractors or whatever, well, for your team, it don't apply because you have to go by
exactly.
So if you ask me to borrow $100 and I tell you when and how I want you to pay it back, if you don't like the guidelines that I give you, then don't take
You
my
don't
money.
take the $100.
So that's
Absolutely
just
correct. You ain't getting $100.
that's what it goes back to. So the league's bylaws aren't contradicting the funding instructions from every installation, but maybe from your installation. So if they're funding it, if they're contradicting your installation, then as a coach, make your team fall underneath the guidelines to get the funding that the support that you're requesting or you're asking for, and then keep it moving. Now, if they're saying you can't play against other ID card holders that aren't active duty or whatever, that would be interesting to me. But if they're saying we're not going to support you because you can have civilians and stuff on the team, then you just go work with them hand in hand and make sure you're writing up a bylaw for your installation team that only active duty members are allowed to participate, so on and so forth. And then you can garner the support that you're looking for. But the reality is it still falls back on the coach. Like if I can't get help at Cannon because they don't want civilians riding on the vans, which was an issue in the years past, then I simply said no civilians on my team or if there are civilians on my team, you can't ride on the vans. You got to secure alternate transportation. Now I can get support in the form of vehicles, right? Because I just have to be a coach and I have to do the hard thing and I have to make my guidelines fall underneath whatever I'm required to get the support that I need. And I kind of think.
And I know for us in the Army, AR 215-1 is what we sit up and follow. What we sit up and follow. And you can go on there and sit up and break it down completely down to who plays on your team, who you play, all that type of stuff, and what you can and what you can't do. And which of course is subjective, just like any AR is, or you look at it, you add to, can't take away. And so it's just a comment, and it looks so as I was going, and your head might start to spin when you start reading because the way it's written, like, God dang, couldn't y'all make this format this a little easier? But you know what I'm saying, you get into it, you read it, and you can find out what you know what I'm saying, and it comes down, knowledge is power. That's one of my hugest monikers. So I know we're getting close on time. So I want to ask this question, right? Because as y'all was speaking, and like you said, Jason is the commissioner for the Tri-League commissioner, Tri-Conference commissioner. Is there anything potentially being put out there? Because I know currently we have, as I look at the NMBT's conference, top 25, and then of course the NBA's top 25 is different because it's only teams that are in the NBA, but the NMBT is all the installations. Is there a possibility or anything potentially to bring in the fold of independents in the other two, the CMAC and the WAMAC, to bring it into the fold, to where at some point there's a whole unity of military basketball? Is that anything potentially in the works, or something just to see that?
Go ahead. I want to defer to Al first. Go ahead, Al, because he had his
Coach
hand
Al.
up.
So from the NBA perspective, I'm the president of basketball operations for the NBA. So what we're gonna do this summer after our NBA finals, we're gonna get together. We have a basketball council that has 2 coaches and 4 guys. Two coaches, Jason, and 3 other gentlemen that used to coach but don't coach in teams, but they're very knowledgeable. We're gonna get together and come up with a plan that, as we talk to other conferences to see what we can do for next year, that the NBA teams, the NBA conferences will have their tournaments, will have their season and their leagues, and how do we mix in or join with these other leagues, which are the CMAC and the WAMAC, so we have one product. Whether that's maybe we have a few open tournaments that the NBA puts on in the fall and the spring that you can bring and play however you want, right? And then how we have our pure things. there has to be some communication, positive communication amongst all these so-called leaders, those of us who want to be the leaders of military basketball. That isn't on social media where we go around bashing each other. We have to get to the point that we respect what each other is doing, and that's their lane. Mo spoke on this earlier. That's their business. But in the same token, we have to be able to collaborate and talk and see what we can do to support each other, even though we may not agree with that type of basketball. Meaning that Mo and Paris and Dave would tell you, if they had it their way, it would be all active duty at all times. Not everybody believes that. That don't make them wrong and make the other folks right. What it has to be is that we have to learn to support and respect what each other's doing. So for that to happen, Trey, to your point, is that we have to all sit down at a table, whether that's on the Zoom call, whatever, put our egos to the side and try to make the decision on what's best to make military basketball the best it can be. All the bullshit drama that's been going on over the last 3 months has to stop if we want to put on a product that these service members want to play in. They just want to hoop. We have to make it easy for them just to hoop. Times have changed where unit installations pay for everything. These young men are paying their own money. They're practicing after work, before work, on their weekends. They're sacrificing as much as the volunteer coaches are sacrificing. We have to put them first, but we also have to bring some peace and some calm to it so they know we got their best interest at heart. When they see all of us fighting and arguing, they don't want no part of that, man. They just want to go hoop. And we have to do our point to make that happen. And if that means fighting with the installation sports office that's our business. That's not their business. That's on us to do. And the way we do that is collaborate with each other and move forward. So as the president of basketball operations of the NBA, that's my goal this summer, is to try to get us together and come up with one thing. They'll have different tournaments with different bylaws, but one thing going forward, that when these service members lace up their shoes, they know what it is. Right now, there's too much shit going on and fighting about stuff that we don't control. We don't own this shit. And that's what we have to get to. MWR used to own it. They paid for it and they made all the rules. Well, they don't own it anymore because they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
So now it's up to us to try to unify it. And there may never be a universal standard, but that can be something that we can agree to respect and support. And I think if we can find a way to do that, we won't have these comments. We won't have this stuff going on social media, especially over the last 3 months, about what happened or what I don't agree with. So what? You don't have to like everybody and be their damn best friend to respect what they're doing over there.
So, Trey, to answer what you originally, to caveat on Al and answer what you had asked, independents were not discussed for this season as far as being part of the NBA. So let's just put that out there first and foremost. But there was a path this year that was presented to the CMAC, right? To the top 4 CMAC teams after their tournament, and to 4 or 5 teams out of the WAMAC to come together with the Atlantic teams and play in a qualifier, a seeding qualifier that would have seeded them for our NBA playoffs. So the short answer is yes, there was an option that was given. The CMAC respectively declined, which is their business, and that's fine, but we offered it. And the WAMAC teams just couldn't make it happen, as we found out recently the other day. But yes, there was an option this year. Now, to be honest with you, was that a one-off for this year? Maybe, maybe not. Like Al said, we're going to come together in the summer, as we do every summer, and discuss, talk to coaches, and see if there is a path for independence or if there's not, to see if there is a path for other teams that are not in the NBA but are in conferences, or there's not. That's something that we're going to have to discuss. But just so everybody knows, that path was, because it was asked of us this last summer, that path was put out there, and we just couldn't make it happen as a group. So
okay.
yeah.
But it was so. Of course, the end state is there's a moving forward point in it to improve and a betterment of
Always.
military basketball for the most part, not NBA, not
Every
NBT,
year,
but
every
military
year,
basketball.
every year. I will tell you in the summer discussions happen. Is everybody privy to those? No. Are all coaches privy to those? No. Are all players privy to that? No. Just like the NBA and Major League, they have their winter baseball meetings and their summer trips to Orlando and whatever, and they talk about rules and bylaws and they make their subtle changes with Adam Silver and they do what they do. We do the same thing. All these coaches, at least I know that have been in with me for the last 5, 6, 7 years. If they could pull up the bylaws that they had from year 1 to year 7, tremendous differences. Why? Because we look at the coaches every year and say, we do AAR. What did you like? What didn't you like? What would you like to change? And we have been in an ebb and flow for the last 3, 4, 5 years to make those changes. Now, whether it's in the right direction or not, well, time will tell. But it's not a set in stone. This is the bylaws. We're not moving forward. We're always looking to make changes.
Hey,
so.
Trey, can I say one quick thing?
Yes,
man?
sir. Go ahead.
Hey, real quick. I think the unification issue or effort is, I guess, is admirable or whatever case may be. But I think it's very important that when you say to further your question about is there something to further military to make better military basketball, I think that is an ongoing process. But I think part of the problem is the betterment of military basketball does not have to fall underneath one name brand. And I think that's what the problem is right now. The reality is NBA, I've been a part of it, is a great product, great program, great opportunity. The independence and the open runs, guess what? They are a great opportunity as well. So there is no need in my mind to try and make the CMAC or the WAMAC be the NBA if they so choose not to, right? It is multiple opportunities for these soldiers to play basketball more than ever before. If we begin to try and make everybody look the same because the National Basketball League looks like one thing, it's going to be difficult because the MWR was funding everything and it was one thing, right? It all looked like one thing. But if you go back and remember, the MWR was only on the Army side. Yep. The Air Force MWR still wasn't funding it the same way. It was being done differently. So it's never been, in my mind, to where all military basketball, all military softball, all military whatever sport falls underneath one umbrella and grows at the same rate. There's different entities, there's different brands, there's different names. I think the real way to push military basketball forward is, and I'll continue to I'll harp on it, is for coaches to actually be coaches and to really decide that they want to be in charge of what they're doing. And then secondly, for everybody to choose the lane that falls in compliance with their beliefs and their passion and to operate in that lane and leave all the other lanes alone. If I love grow military basketball, if you're a purist and the NBA is for you, join the NBA and work to grow that lane. If you like to put together the super teams and you just want players to be able to play from all over the country, go in that lane and continue to grow that lane. Leave the other guys alone. Stop the negativity. But the idea that you have to consume or absorb CMAC, WAMAC, all these other things into one umbrella, I think is unrealistic and I think it's unnecessary.
I think that's a good one to end up going out on. Coaches, I greatly appreciate y'all tapping in this morning and stating your case. I think it actually was a good dialogue back and forth. Of course, just pure and straightforward, letting you know what y'all think it is, and which we see. Of course, you see in the comments and stuff came out, which questions was asked, questions were answered. Now going forth is just a situation in which a lot of people said, and which is, I think the stigma is said out in the open, but once we get behind closed doors, then the whole conversation tends to shift and go a different way. So of course, saying from what y'all saying, the ideal is to move forward and do what is best you can for military basketball, not necessarily be under one umbrella, but to be for everyone basically to work with one another to produce the best product that we possibly can, which I think is very feasible from the most part. And that honestly, just should be, I think, is other aspects in which have to be included in that as well, being even down to, like we said, installations when it can be. But of course, like you said, their haircut only can do what they can. But in my opinion, and I say, like from my standpoint, as long as I'm here at Fort Polk, then I'm going to do what I can as long as I can, or until I can go somewhere else and maybe go somewhere else and continue to do the same thing. But I greatly appreciate y'all tapping in with us
Trey,
this morning. Yes, sir.
Real quick, can I just do a plug real fast? So,
yeah, go ahead.
April 14th and 15th at North Crowley High School is the CUSMBL tournament. April 21st to the 23rd is the Pac West tournament out at the Doolittle Center in Las Vegas. And then we have the NBA playoffs in Wichita, Kansas, Memorial Day weekend, April 26th to the 28th. If you're near any one of those and you want to come, admission's free. Come on out, support you guys.
So we still going to Kansas, huh?
You still coming to Kansas. Yes, sir. hey, like Mo said, you ain't got to come. That's your choice.
Hey, there you go.
Facts. Maybe we get to Arizona one year. Hey, I feel you. Maybe one year we get to Arizona. Who knows? Talk to your NBA commissioner about it.
Hey, Paris, get Dort and come on home, man.
No, man. No, I don't want to go.
Anyway, I just wanted to put them plugs out there because I know a lot of people have been asking me when the tournaments are. So that's where it is. They can go back and check it out.
Trey, before you go.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I talked about the NBA Council. I want to name those guys because most of them on here. So it's myself, Coach Snow from Fort Worth as the coaches, Coach Cal, Coach Mo, and Coach Edward Jacobs from the Marine Corps. So we try to get somebody from every service on there so that we have every philosophy and their experiences. And that way we try to make the best decision for the NBA. And so we're going to use those gentlemen, try to bring one or two players into this conversation in the summer. And some of those guys from the WAMAC, the leaders of the WAMAC and the CMAC, not to put under one umbrella, but to put out something that we can all support and respect. Because Mo was right on that. It's not we're never going to find the round hole to put the square plug in. That's not going to happen, right? But we can try to make it where we can all support each other and not fight each other, and that's the goal. And I think that was a part of these conversations that you had over the last 3 weeks when you had those two commissioners on, you had the players on, now you got some coaches, is that you're just trying to see if we can have conversations so where we can all glorify what we're doing and support it all. Because that's what makes military basketball what it is. That's what's making it unique.
But
it's not the same thing. All right, I'm done.
Real quick, it's something because, like I said, I plan to have the ladies on. What is the going forth for that? We have women in basketball. Is there an option? Because I'm very sure it's going to come up when I get them come on. So
I will tell you from our standpoint. My stance has always been. I've always told the ladies here at Fort Riley, anywhere else. If there are enough teams to form a women's conference, I will mirror it and do it. But the problem across the years have been, it's just not as much support as the guys from the ladies themselves. Now, I'm not saying there's not lady ball players out there because there all are, right? It's a matter of getting the teams together. And I know Aces tried down there at Benning, and there's been a couple of teams up in the DC area. But, I mean, again, you're not going to get those DC teams to travel all the way down to Benning and vice versa. But if there are enough teams in an area to form a conference, I'm all for it, and I'm open ears.
Trey, that's a whole show, Trey.
It is. It is
a whole other show.
It is. And we do have some ladies lined up that wants to actually talk about it. Because I do know there's a few ladies out here in the Fort Sam area that wants to participate. However, like you said, Jason, is the fact of the matter is they got to get enough women. And even she said when I spoke to her about the tournament that went on this a couple of weekends ago, she's like, I just can't get enough to want to participate.
And stick with it through the whole season.
Right. And that's huge. That is the big thing. So
the platform is there though, Bishop. The platform is there. I mean, we've established it already with the men's side, and it's just literally mirroring it with the women as long as there's enough interest and enough teams, and we can hopefully limit their travel. But it's there. We've never shut out the women's side. I know Mike a couple years ago tried to start it up when we did it with the NBA. It's just it's a little bit harder, and for what the reason is, I don't know, but it just is.
No, and I totally understand it. So if there's any women that's on here listening right now that is interested, you hear it first from them. You hear it first from them. They're letting you know it's an opportunity, but it comes from y'all first. It starts with y'all. As women players, women coaches, women whatever. If y'all want it to be established, it start first with y'all. So again, like Trey said, we definitely appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all coming on here. Love having this conversation. I think it was a conversation needed, especially like Trey said, and like Al and all of y'all have stated before. You know, we had the commissioners on here. We had Mr. Richardson on here, and, you know, it was going back and forth. But now we had the coaches. We have the coaches' perspective on the same thing in which they spoke about just a week or two ago. So it's good to have y'all all on here and be able to get y'all point across so everyone can hear. We want to thank Justin. We want to thank Raya, Commissioner Myers, Colton, all James, all the individuals who came on here and put in their comments. Mr. Richardson himself. We thank you all. And we definitely greatly appreciate you, coaches. I'm finna let Trey close us out here real quick, and thank y'all so much. And we love having y'all on here again.
Appreciate it, bro. So, of course, going forth, like I said, greatly appreciate y'all. Y'all already know where to find us every Monday through Friday, 9 to 1100 hours CST, Central Standard Time. You know what to do to format it for where you are. Of course, be sure to tap in tomorrow. We're going to have our man Mike Barker going to be tapped in with us tomorrow to talk about what's going on with Hero Sports. So we'll be able, he's been on before, we'll tap in with him, see what's going on latest and greatest with that. Like I said, more shows to come up as we continue to look and find informational individuals. Is reference to, like I said, it's not just military. Why did I
still want his basketballs, Trey? You still want his basketballs?
I tell you what, y'all with your game tonight, and then we'll sit and talk about basketballs after the fact. So greatly appreciate, but like I said, more conversations to be had probably in certain aspects and stuff like that to create a whole comprehensive situation where everyone is enjoying and listening to what's got to be said, what's being said, and of course it spans across many platforms for the most part. So it's all about moving forward and doing what we can. Of course, there's probably some people who feel differently, and then they're free to come on and speak their piece as well. And maybe, and sometimes hearing that portion, you pull something from it, and that's how you basically go better. That's how things was built in this world. So, of course, like I said, y'all know where to find us. Not Cyro5. First Formation morning sports talk every morning, 9 to 1100, Monday through Friday. And sometimes some special times depending on what's going on. So we look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. Tap in, talk about what's been going on in the NBA, NFL. Who's going where are they going? Who's punching their tickets? Who's throwing them hands on the weekend? All that type of stuff. Tap in tomorrow. And we greatly appreciate y'all. Enjoy your day. Holla at y'all one. I'm out.
Go Mavs, go Longhorns.
Go Rockets, go Texas. Go Rockets, go Texas.